Hi, it's Helen. I read my son's message 3 times before I realized I hadn't actually breathed since the first. Don't call me anymore. I'm tired of you and your requests. That was it. No context, no explanation. Just cold, digital words that cut deeper than any argument ever could. I stared at the screen in my hand, my thumb hovering over the keyboard, aching to respond. But I didn't. I didn't say anything, not because I agreed, not because I didn't have words, but because something inside me, something long silent, told me this time silence was stronger than any plea I could make. I remember the exact moment the weight of it all settled in my chest. I was in the kitchen, early morning light pouring across the faded tiles. My coffee had gone cold beside the sink. I stood there, phone in hand, heart thudding loud enough to drown out the birds outside. I read the message again, just to be sure I hadn't misunderstood. I hadn't. He meant it. And the strangest part, I didn't cry. Not then, not right away. I just stood still, like someone watching the last train leave the station. Not panicked, not desperate, just painfully aware that something important had moved on without me. The silence in the house was deafening. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same one he used to do his homework on, legs swinging because they couldn't touch the floor yet. I used to sit right there, across from him, cutting the crust off his sandwiches, helping him spell elephant, holding his head when he cried from a fever. I raised him in this house. I gave him his first car, his first savings account, his first $1,000 bailout when things got messy with his first job. And now here I was, apparently too much, too many calls, too many requests. I couldn't help but wonder, what requests? That he call his mother once a week, that he check in, that he remember my birthday without his wife prompting him. Or was it because last month I asked if he might help with the rising cost of my prescriptions? I hadn't begged. I hadn't even insisted. I'd just mentioned the cost of insulin at the end of a casual conversation. Maybe that was it. Maybe that tipped the scale from beloved mother to burdensome obligation. I thought about replying. I thought about saying, "You don't have to worry, I won't ask for anything again," or, "I hope one day your own child speaks to you more kindly," but instead I said nothing. Because if there's one thing I've learned at this age, it's that chasing someone's love is the surest way to forget your own worth. So I put down the phone, I poured the cold coffee down the sink, and I sat, hands folded in my lap, listening to the quiet. It was painful, but it was honest, and I had decided long ago that I would rather sit in honest loneliness than in the arms of false affection. Later that evening, I found the last birthday card I got from him, 2 years ago, pre-printed words with nothing added, not even "Love Josh," just "Mom," and a receipt still tucked behind the flap. He hadn't even removed the price tag. I stared at that card for a long time, and then, without any ceremony, I folded it in half and dropped it into the trash. I didn't say a word, but something had shifted, and I wasn't going back. That night, I lay awake in bed, the silence of the house pressing down like a second blanket. I stared at the ceiling, counting the same tiny crack above the window that had been there since Frank died. Funny how certain things stay, and others vanish without warning. Like your son deciding, through a text message, that his mother no longer fits in the picture of the life he wants to live, like you're some out-of-date piece of furniture he doesn't know what to do with. I turned over, hoping for sleep, but my mind had other plans. I kept thinking back to all the little ways I'd said yes over the years, tiny yeses, small sacrifices. "Sure, take my car." "Of course I'll babysit again this weekend." "Don't worry, I'll cover the difference." Never wanting to be a burden, always wanting to help, Because that's what mothers do, right? We fill in the cracks, we hold the pieces together, we stretch, we bend, and sometimes we break. But I don't remember ever saying yes to being forgotten. I thought back to when Josh was small, how I'd sit in the bleachers at every game, no matter the weather, cheering until I was hoarse. How I worked nights after Frank got sick just to keep Josh in those private music lessons he loved for exactly 6 months before he quit. How I sold my engagement ring after the recession to help him pay off his college debt when he was too ashamed to ask. He never knew that part. I never told him. I didn't want to embarrass him. I thought keeping quiet was kindness, but silence becomes a habit, one you forget how to break, until someone hands you the final insult. And that message, that awful message, was it. The next morning, I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't check for an apology that wasn't coming. I made myself tea instead. I opened the curtains and let the cold light in, and I started writing, not to Josh, not to anyone, just to myself. I wrote, "You are not invisible. You are not a burden. You are not less valuable because your usefulness has expired to someone who no longer remembers what you gave." Then I opened the old brown accordion folder I hadn't touched in years, the one marked House, 1983, in fading black ink. Inside were all the things we used to keep because we didn't trust computers, bank statements, insurance, Frank's will, and buried under everything, receipts. Actual receipts from Josh's early adult life, rent payments, repairs, tuition stubs, every little thing I'd quietly covered. I don't know why I kept them. Maybe part of me always feared this day would come, the day I'd need to remind myself of how much I'd done, because clearly no one else remembered. And in that folder something caught my eye, a note, Frank's handwriting. "If anything happens to me, Helen, don't give everything to them too easily. Keep something for you. Promise me." I had forgotten it was there. I read those words over and over again until they blurred with tears. I whispered into the quiet, "I'm sorry, Frank. I broke that promise." But not anymore. Not starting today. Because maybe being silent all those years was a mistake. Maybe it's time the silence ended, and maybe, just maybe, it's time I started making requests of my own. The first call I made wasn't to Josh. It was to the bank. I needed to see it with my own eyes, not the numbers in my memory, but the real truth, what was still mine, what I still controlled, what I had left after years of small loans and temporary support. I sat in a hard plastic chair in front of a too young manager who smiled too much, and I listened as she read back to me the balances on the accounts I'd once built with care, with sweat, with sacrifice. And I felt the slow, shameful burn of reality settle in my chest. It wasn't that I was broke, not quite. But I was nowhere near where I should have been, where I would have been, not after everything I gave. "Would you like to go over the recurring transfers?" she asked. I blinked. "What transfers?" She smiled, clicked, tilted the screen, and there it was. $500 here, $300 there. Automatic payments to a credit card Josh had in both our names, one I barely remembered co-signing on years ago when he swore it was just for emergencies. A gym membership I certainly wasn't using. Streaming services, grocery delivery, little things, always little things. But over time they become heavy, like drops of water in a bucket left beneath a leak. You don't notice it at first, until the weight of it tips everything over. I went home that afternoon and sat on the couch with a pad of paper in my lap. I started listing every little thing I could remember, birthday checks, down payments, times I covered it just this once, times I said nothing when I should have said, enough. The list was long, and so was the silence between us. Josh hadn't texted again, not a word, not a sorry, not a backtrack, just that one message. "Don't call me anymore. I'm tired of you and your requests. And it kept ringing in my ears, like a sentence passed down, not a conversation, a verdict. I reached out to his sister, Elaine. I hadn't spoken to her in months. She lived 2 states over and had her own life, her own children, but I knew if I said the word she'd pick up. And she did. "Mom?" Her voice softened. "Is everything okay?" I don't remember what I said first. Maybe I didn't say anything for a moment. Maybe I just let her hear the tired in my voice. But I finally told her. Not all of it. Not yet. Just enough. "Josh sent me a message. Said he's tired of me. Told me not to call anymore." There was a long pause on the other end. And then something I hadn't expected. "What did he want?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" Elaine sighed. "He only ever gets like that when he's about to ask for something huge and doesn't want anyone in the way. Did he ask for money before?" I thought about the insulin, the way I'd brought it up so delicately, ashamed of even mentioning it. The way he'd gone silent afterward for days, and then that text, out of the blue, like I was the one draining him. "No," I said. "He didn't ask. Not this time." "Then he's planning to," she said. "Or he already did, and it didn't go his way. Either way, it's cruel. And I'm sorry." Her voice cracked on that last part. "I've been afraid to tell you," she said. "But I think you need to know. Josh has been telling people you've been forgetful, that you call too much, that you're confused sometimes." The world went quiet. Not the room, not the phone. Me. I went quiet. Elaine kept talking, but her words came through water. I heard enough to understand that he was laying the groundwork, that he'd told his wife I was slipping, that I meant well but was getting difficult. It all made sense now. Why he hadn't invited me to Thanksgiving last year. Why the grandkids had stopped FaceTiming as much. Why, when I tried to talk about anything important, he always gently redirected, as if I were a child trying to speak at the adult table. He wasn't just tired of me, he was erasing me, little by little, word by word. "So what do?" I asked. Elaine's voice hardened. "You remember who you are, Mom, and you stop letting people decide your value for you." That night, I pulled out the envelope I kept tucked in the back of my drawer, the one with my power of attorney papers, my bank statements, the title to the house, all in my name. Mine. Not his, not anyone else's, just mine. And I remembered what Frank had written. "Don't give everything to them too easily. Keep something for you," I whispered aloud. "I hear you now. Because they may be tired of me, but I was tired too. Tired of being treated like a ledger someone forgot to balance. 3 days, that's how long it took. 3 days of silence, not just from Josh, but from everyone who normally echoed through my phone like clockwork when they needed something. And then it came. A message, short, blunt. "Did you cancel the card? The electric bill didn't go through." No greeting. No question about how I was feeling. Just, "Did you cancel?" I stared at that message, the audacity of it, and something in me snapped, not in anger, but in resolve. Because yes, I had canceled the card. And the other one, too. I had spent the last 72 hours in a quiet flurry, like a woman preparing for a storm she knew was finally coming. I made calls, I closed accounts, I redirected auto payments, I revoked Josh's name from anything he'd once co-signed or sweet-talked me into authorizing just for now. I'd even changed the lockbox code at the bank. It felt like walking through my house and locking the doors behind me one by one. Click, 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 safe, secure, alone, but not afraid. When I didn't respond to Josh's message, another came 2 hours later. "Why would you do that without telling me? You've put us in a really hard spot. Us." There it was. The joined burden of his needs. disguised as a collective hardship. We. Us. It was never me when he spoke of the bills or the pressures. It was always a partnership, one I hadn't agreed to in years, and still. I didn't respond. Instead, I went outside and swept the porch. I replanted the little lavender bush that had struggled all summer. I wrote in my journal, small acts of ownership, small reminders that this life, this home, belonged to me. By the next morning, he called. I didn't answer. I let it ring until the voicemail picked up. I let the silence carry the weight of my absence. Then came the knock. It was a soft knock, careful, not the heavy pounding kind I feared might come with accusations, just 3 light taps. I opened the door. He was standing there, my son, my once golden boy, eyes tired, shirt wrinkled, face thinner than I remembered. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice cautious. "Can I come in?" I studied him, that same boy who used to run in from the backyard, face covered in mud, holding dandelions like trophies. That boy was still in there, somewhere. I stepped aside. He walked in slowly, like a stranger visiting a place he used to know by heart. He sat at the kitchen table without asking, his hands clasped together like a child waiting for discipline. "I didn't mean what I said," he began. "That text, it was out of line." I raised my eyebrows. "Which part?" I asked. He looked down. "All of it, I guess." "You guess?" I echoed. He looked up then, eyes dark with something closer to grief than guilt. "It's just, we've been under a lot of pressure. Work's been awful. The kids' school keeps raising tuition. And Emily got braces. Rachel's been stressed out, and I took it out on you." I waited. I shouldn't have said it. I was angry, but I didn't mean it. "Then why did you say it?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer right away. "I don't know," he finally whispered, "because I knew I could." That stopped me, the honesty of it, the terrible, naked truth of it. "I knew you'd forgive me," he said, "because you always do." I sat across from him, wrapping my hands around a warm mug of tea I didn't remember making. I looked him in the eyes. "You're right," I said. "I always have." He nodded, the silence between us thick as syrup. Then he added, "But not this time, right?" I took a long sip before answering. "No, not this time." He swallowed hard. "I didn't think I was that kind of son," he said, "the kind who forgets his mother, who uses her, but I see it now. I see what I've become." Tears stung the corners of his eyes, but he blinked them back. I don't know how to fix it." I looked at him, really looked, and what I saw was not cruelty. It wasn't evil. It was fear, exhaustion, years of entitlement wrapped in good intentions and bad habits. A man who had built his life on the silent assumption that his mother would always be there to catch him. "You don't have to fix it all today," I said, "but you have to start." He nodded. Then, barely above a whisper, "I don't know how to be a man without your help." "You won't always have my help," I said gently. "And that's exactly why it's time you learn." He closed his eyes, breathing in through his nose like someone bracing for pain. "But I'll always be your mother," I added, "even when I say no." And then I reached out and placed my hand over his. He looked down at our fingers. "Do you still love me?" he asked. I let the question hang in the air before answering. Because love is complicated. It's not always kind, and it's certainly not always soft. But I nodded. "I do," I said, "enough to stop enabling you." Josh came back the next morning, not with excuses, not with Rachel, just him, standing on the porch in a sweatshirt he'd probably owned since college, eyes raw with whatever storm had passed through him overnight. He had a folder under his arm. "I brought the statements," he said, "everything you covered, everything I ignored." He didn't ask to come in. He waited. and for the first time in a long time, I wanted to let him in. Not just into the house, into the truth, into the reckoning. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where he used to color with crayons and spill juice boxes. He laid the folder between us like an offering. Quietly, he turned the pages: utility bills, credit cards, medical co-pays, transfers labeled "Mom, thank you," that frankly had never been thanked. "I didn't see it," he said, voice tight, "or I didn't want to." I didn't say anything. Sometimes silence is the only language regret can understand. "I told Rachel I'm stepping away," he added. "From the boutique, the overspending, the show we keep putting on like we're still in our 20s. It's done. I took a second job, part-time at the university. It's not glamorous, but it's mine." That caught me off guard. A second job. My son, the one who used to scoff at the idea of budgeting, had taken a teaching assistant role at night. He wasn't just apologizing, he was changing. And that mattered more than any sorry ever could. "I understand if you don't want to forgive me," he said. I didn't want you to think I didn't love you, because I do. I always have. I just lost my way." My heart ached in that complicated way a mother's heart always does, half pride, half sadness for all the years lost to silence and assumptions. I reached into the drawer and pulled out Frank's old letter, the one I'd read days ago. I handed it to Josh. He read it slowly, his lips moving just slightly as he took in his father's words. "Don't give everything to them too easily. Keep something for you." His eyes glistened. "Dad wrote this?" he whispered. I nodded. "He knew," I said, "even back then." Josh sat back in the chair, folding the letter with reverent hands. "I want to be better," he said. "For you, for my kids, for me." I poured us each a cup of tea, the same cinnamon spice he loved as a boy. We drank in silence, the kind that heals instead of hurts. Before he left, he turned to me at the door. "I canceled the joint account," he said, "and I opened one just for you, for whatever you want, no strings. Consider it the first repayment, not for the money, but for the years I didn't say thank you." I smiled, tired and full. "I don't need a new account," I said, "but I'll take the thank you." He hugged me then, not the hurried, distracted hug of someone checking a box, but the kind that lasts, the kind that says, "I see you now." After he left, I sat in the sunroom, the folder still on the table, and I cried. Not because I was hurt, because I wasn't invisible anymore, because sometimes love looks like silence broken, like a grown man learning to carry his own weight. And because I had finally done the bravest thing I ever could. I had said no and watched someone I love become better for it. If you're reading this, and if your own silence has been mistaken for permission, I want you to know it is never too late to speak, never too late to draw a line, to take back your worth, to choose peace over pleasing, because love, real love, doesn't demand your sacrifice. It grows stronger in your strength.